All right, so let's say we have some long, complicated expression, something like this. This is a long, complicated expression, and I'm not even going to try to read the whole thing out. But when we look at this, we need to decide what to do first. And there's a rule called the order of operations that tells us when we have several operations together, we need to all agree on what order they ought to come in, and the agreement we all make is called the order of operations. So, when we see something with a long, complicated string of operations, the first thing that we do is anything that we see inside parentheses or any other grouping symbol. Remember, the parentheses say, ignore the usual rules. Do whatever's inside first. Now, what other grouping symbols are there? Well, we've met one. That was the absolute value signs. Remember when we met the absolute value, we said, any arithmetic you see inside there, do it first. The absolute value signs serve as a grouping symbol. There's one other grouping symbol that we see here. The fraction bar also serves as a grouping symbol. Any arithmetic we see in the numerator or denominator, we should do that first. So, in this expression, I see 3 bits of arithmetic that are marked as groups. This one, and this one. Now, as for what order we do these computations in, it doesn't matter. As long as the groups don't overlap, you can compute them in any order. All of these are relatively simple arithmetic, so we can also compute them all at once. Let's see, we'll have 4 minus 3 is 1. Let's see, 1 plus 2 is 3, and 7 plus 8 is 15. Okay, that's all of my grouping symbols taken care of. Now all I have left is addition and multiplication. But wait, you say, there's also division and subtraction. But remember, subtraction is just adding the opposite, and division is just multiplication by the reciprocal. So really it comes down to which ought to come first, multiplication or addition. And the one we all agree on is multiplication. We next perform all the multiplication and division from left to right. Now, notice this division here, divided by 3, we could, if we wanted to, rewrite as multiplication. But regardless, we'll get 3 times 1 is 3, and then the next multiplication is 3/5 times 15, which ought to be 9, and then 17 divided by 3. 3 doesn't go into 17. I'm just going to say this is 17/3. And then I have 17/3 times 6, which this might be a job for a calculator or for writing out this step in a little bit more detail, but we're going to get 34. Okay, and now all that's left is addition. But there's subtraction. Yeah, but subtraction is just adding the opposite, right? So all that's left is addition and subtraction from left to right. So 3 minus 9, that's 3 plus negative 9, right? The negative number is bigger. Opposite sign, so subtract, that's negative 6. So we've got negative 6 plus 34. 34 is bigger. opposite signs, so subtract. This will be positive 28. So the order of operations, again, first parentheses and other grouping symbols, then multiplication and division from left to right, and then addition and subtraction from left to right. Now, this is not quite the whole story. There's one operation left that we haven't talked about, and that is exponents. We'll talk about exponents in our next lesson, and when we do, we will insert them into the order of operations right after the grouping symbols. Two other things to be aware of. The absolute value is a grouping symbol. You take the absolute value right after you finish the arithmetic inside. For example, suppose we have 7 minus the absolute value of negative 3 times 2. Well, first we'll work out negative 3 times 2, which is negative 6. And now that we've finished the arithmetic inside it, we'll take the absolute value. Absolute value of negative 6 is, of course, positive 6. And now we'll do the remaining arithmetic. 7 minus 6 is just 1. Another thing to remember when thinking about signed numbers, taking the opposite is like multiplying by negative 1. It happens at the same time as multiplication. So in particular, if I say take the opposite of the absolute value of negative 5, well, first you'll take the absolute value of negative 5. That happens at the time that grouping symbols are called for. And then you'll take the opposite. So the opposite of the absolute value of negative 5, well, is the opposite of positive 5, so it's just negative 5.